Solving equations. When we're solving an equation, we're trying to deduce what the value of the unknown is. So we're trying to find out what the value of x is in most questions, but it could be any letter. And to do this, we need to remember the inverse operations, the opposite operations. So what I mean by that is, what is the opposite to adding? It's subtracting. What is the opposite to timesing? It's dividing. So in all these questions, we're going to do the inverse operation. Now it's really important that you always show you're working when doing this question. And remember, the equal sign means it's got to be the same on both sides of the equation. So if you're taking off a value from one side, you've got to take it off from the other side. And if you set out your working exactly like I'm going to show you here, you'll have no problems. But what we're aiming for in every question is we're aiming for the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side. So 3x plus 2 is equal to 11. Now what we have at the moment is we have a 3x plus on a value of 2. But what we want to have is we just want to have this 3x on its own on the left hand side and all the numbers on the other. So what we need to do is we need to somehow remove this plus 2 from this side. But remember, we've got to keep it balanced on both sides of the equation. So what would we get the plus 2? What would cancel out to make it 0? Well, what we need to do is we need to take away 2 from both sides. So if we do 3x, we're going to have 3x, but then we're going to have 2 take away 2, which is going to leave us with 0. And on the right hand side, we're going to have 11 minus 2, which is 3. So what we did there was we took away 2 from both sides of the equation to eliminate that 2, because 2 minus 2 left us with 0. Now we've got 3 times x equals 9, but we only want one lot of x. So what is the inverse of timesing by 3? Well, it's to divide both sides by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1x, which is what we want, because we want to find out what the value of 1x is. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. So x is equal to 3. And if we substituted 3 back into here, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11. So we can check that what we've got is correct. Let's have a look at another example of these solving two-step equations. So we've got 4x minus 3 equals 21. And remember, we want to have just x's on one side and the numbers on the other. So we want to somehow remove that minus 3 from the left-hand side. So we need to do the inverse, the opposite operation. So what is the opposite to taking away 3? Well, it's to add 3 to both sides of the equation. So on the left hand side, we're going to have 4x, because minus 3 add 3 would be 0, so we're left with no numbers on that side. And on the other side, we've got 21 plus 3, which is 24. Now we've got 4 times a number is equal to 24. So what's the opposite to timesing by 4? It's to divide by 4, so we're going to divide both sides by 4. So x is equal to 24 divided by 4, which is 6. Now let's just take this skill on one step further now, and this time, instead of having 4 times x like we had up here, we've got x over 2. What does that mean, that over? It means divide by 2. So we've got the number divided by 2, add 3 equals 7. So yet again, we want to be left with just the x on one side and all the numbers on the other. So the first thing we want to do is to make this, instead of having a plus 3, we want to have plus 0 by taking away 3 from both sides of the equation. So we're going to have x over 2 is equal to 4. The opposite to dividing by 2 is to times by 2, so we're going to times both sides by 2. And that will leave us with x equals 8. So yeah, again, the first step was to subtract 3 from both sides. You just leave us with that x over 2. Here we've got a bracket. We've got 3 in brackets, 3x minus 2 equals 39. So what we need to do is we need to think back to our skills and expand it. And we're going to expand the brackets first. So 3 times 3x, which we know is 9x, because we multiply it out. And 3 times 2 is going to be minus 6, because it's a minus 2. Now, you should notice that this is now an equation like what we're looking at up here. So all we've done is we've just added an extra step into what we already know. So the first thing we want to do is what? Yeah, we need to add 6 to both sides first. So we're going to have 9x is equal to 45. Then we only want 1x, so we're going to divide both sides by 9. So x is equal to 5. Right, that's solving equations when you've got brackets. The next skill that we need to be able to do is to solve where we've got unknowns on both sides. So here we've got 5x plus 3 is equal to 2x plus 18. So we've got x on both sides. And remember, what we want is we want to have all the x on one side and all the numbers on the other. But yet again, this is just one extra step to what we've been doing. What we look at is which one is the higher amount of x. Is it 5x or 2x? It's 5x. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that 5x where it is, and we're going to do something to this right hand side. So what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of having 2x over here, we want to have no x's. So we want to remove that 2x from both sides. So we're going to subtract 2x away from the right and left hand side. So what is 5x minus 2x? 3x plus 3. 2x minus 2x is no x's. And that's now just equal to 18. And what you should notice is yet again you've got just a nice simple two-step equation to solve now. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So we've got 3x is equal to 15, and then we're going to divide both sides by 3. So x is equal to 5. Let's have a look at another one of those questions. So remember, first thing we want to identify is which one is the higher amount of x. Is it 4x minus 6 equals 2x plus 12? So the 4x is the higher amount of x. So we need to subtract 2x from both sides. So 4x minus 2x is 2x minus 6 equals 12. Now you've got that simple two-step equation again. So you're going to add 6 to both sides. So you're going to have 2x equals 18. Then we only want one lot, so we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 2 to leave x equals 9. So in all these questions, these equations, what we've done is we've been able to do one step to take them very simply back to where we started. And remember, all we're using is the inverse operation. We're making sure what we do to one side, we do to the other. We're keeping it balanced all the way through. One last example is this one. 3x divided by 2 equals 9. Now we've already got all the numbers on one side, but what we've got 3x divided by 2, but we just want to have x. Now the first thing to do in this question is we want to make it so we've just got 3x rather than having 3x divided by 2. So what is the opposite, the inverse dividing by 2? It's to times both sides by 2. Now what will happen is we're going to have these two 2's cancelling each other out, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we're just going to be left with 3x, and on the right hand side we're going to have 9 times 2, which is 18. Now we've got that 3 times the number equals 18, so we need to divide both sides by 3 to be left with x equals 6. Now it's really important, as I said earlier on, that you show all your working when solving an equation, and make sure that what you do to one side you do to the other. Use those inverse operations, the opposite adding and subtracting, and the opposite to times is dividing. What you need to do is you need to have lots of practice at this from the iTunes U course. Have a go at lots of questions and check your answers. Well done.